I'm fairly certain in saying that I was not the only one who thought they might announce a little bit more about Tears of the Kingdom than just the release timing for these rumored amiibo. Is there more to Nintendo's post-release plan for Tears of the Kingdom? Perhaps DLC? Well, that's what we're talking about today.
Hey, listen!
Welcome everyone, this is Andre's Restart, and this time we are talking about what might the DLC plans be for The Legend of Zelda Tears of the Kingdom. Now, this is something that I've touched on before, but there was a lot of speculation that Nintendo might finally announce the DLC for Tears of the Kingdom in this Nintendo Direct, and that didn't happen. So, is there a plan? I think so. But before we go further, let me point out that we are aiming to hit 50,000 subscribers by the end of the year. So if you do enjoy my content, please subscribe and hit the notification bell. With your help, it just might be possible. So while the DLC was not announced during this Nintendo Direct, I still think it's pretty likely to happen. So when you take a look at the list of the different Nintendo published games, you'll notice that most of them, if they were a new mainline release, they had paid DLC. There are some exceptions like Kirby's Forgotten Land and Super Mario Odyssey, but for the most part, if it was a new mainline game from Nintendo, it got DLC. Fire Emblem Engage? Yes. Pokemon Scarlet and Violet? Yes. Splatoon 3? Yes. Xenoblade Chronicles 3? Yes. And those are just some of the more recent big games that have come out from Nintendo. Even in the beginning of the Switch era, most of the big games that came out during that year got paid DLC, including The Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. You know, Tears of the Kingdom's predecessor. So when you look at things from that perspective, odds are there's going to be DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. But it's not guaranteed for whatever reason. And given that the DLC for Breath of the Wild was announced before its release, and we're now after the release for Tears of the Kingdom, and after the first Direct since Tears of the Kingdom, and there still hasn't been a DLC announcement, maybe there's some reason to doubt that it'll come. But not so long ago, we had some semblance of hope that there could be somewhat of an update coming to Tears of the Kingdom, because there's a datamine showing some new content locked behind a Zelda and Ganondorf amiibo. And the one thing the Nintendo Direct did give us in that very short little segment on Tears of the Kingdom is confirmations of these two different amiibo and that they're coming this holiday. So these amiibo, when we scan them in, they may give us something that may be different, and that would be some form of new content. It may not be a brand new adventure, it may not be a brand new challenge mode, but it is likely to be at least a little something. Maybe just another paraglider skin, maybe another weapon or chest or something like that. And it is possible that's all we're going to get in terms of DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. Some have argued that because Tears of the Kingdom is a more expensive game than other Nintendo games, that it's also meant to suggest that it's a very complete, fully decked out kind of Nintendo game, and there is no need for a DLC. I personally don't agree with this. And the reason why is because when Nintendo is making DLC, I don't think the implication is that they're giving us an incomplete game and then filling it up after the fact with DLC that we pay extra for. The intent for DLC announcements, even when they happen shortly before release, isn't to suggest that they're giving us just part of the game and they're going to complete the rest of the game afterwards. It's to suggest that they're going to be developing more content for the game after its release. And while sometimes they may announce that beforehand, all that means is that the game's been done for a little bit already and they are announcing their plans to do so. The point being is that Tears of the Kingdom is a complete game, but that doesn't mean they can't add more content afterwards. And I think the idea about DLC is that not only one, it's more money that can come in by adding more content without having to rebuild an entirely new game, but also it continues the conversation on the game that keeps more people interested in the game and thus more people buying the game. So when Nintendo makes announcements of amiibo, that helps. People are going to buy the amiibo, sure, but also it's going to keep people more interested in the game, keep the conversation going, and it's coming out towards this holiday. And with Tears of the Kingdom being the first or second biggest game of the year in terms of sales potential, they're going to want to give it that big push towards the holiday, so these amiibo will help. But I also think there's a great chance that come, say, maybe the September Nintendo Direct, they will give us a more set release date for these amiibo, because there's always a direct around this time, so they'll give us an update on that. And that may be the opportunity to announce the first wave of DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. Maybe that might be wave 0 or 1. Like the free updates they come, and then afterwards there could be some paid DLC. At some point, I gotta think they're going to at least add some sort of challenge or master mode. We had master mode added to Breath of the Wild, and before that, we had hero mode in the different Zelda remasters. It's strange to not have some sort of other difficulty option for Tears of the Kingdom. So I think there's a decent chance at least that's going to be added. But there's been a lot of discussion about Switch 2 coming out in the not so distant future. I agree with this. I think Switch 2 is probably coming out next year. And with Zelda coming out this year, they're not going to have a big new Zelda to push the next new system unless they're saving DLC to excite fans and have a big update for Tears of the Kingdom ready for when that system comes out. I think that's probably the best explanation as to why they haven't announced it yet, because they are spacing it out, waiting a little bit until the next system comes around. This is my thought process before even going into the Direct. While I thought there was a chance Tears of the Kingdom DLC could be announced, I was also prepared to maybe wait a little bit longer because they may want to save this DLC for the next big new system. But I don't know what they're going to do. While I do think it makes sense to use DLC to lengthen the lifespan and relevance for Tears of the Kingdom for as long as possible, especially because it may be an even longer time before the next big new major Zelda, Nintendo might just opt to focus all of their efforts on the next big new Zelda to get it out as soon as possible, and just outright skip DLC for Tears of the Kingdom. They might do that. I would say it's unlikely because that's not what Nintendo does for most of their games, but it might be the direction they go with Tears of the Kingdom. So at what point do I think it's reasonable to give up on DLC for Tears of the Kingdom? Well, you can make the argument that it may never really be too late, because you look at Mario Kart 8 Deluxe Booster Course Pass, well, the initial Mario Kart came out in 2014. Mario Kart 8 Deluxe is an enhanced port that came out in 2017, and they didn't announce this DLC until the beginning of last year, in 2022. So is it possible that 4 or 5 years from now, when we're still waiting on news for the next big new Zelda, Nintendo announces Tears of the Kingdom DLC, free with your Switch Online membership, that you can get this DLC for the next 2 years to tide things over until they're ready for the next Zelda? That's possible. I think it's unlikely, but it's definitely also possible. My thinking is that the September Nintendo Direct could be a great opportunity to finally announce some DLC plans for Tears of the Kingdom, get people a little bit more excited for the game right before the holidays to bring in more sales. And if it doesn't happen then, I'll be waiting for when Nintendo's next big new system comes around, and for the big Direct that happens around that time or after its release. Basically, I'm not going to give up hope on Tears of the Kingdom DLC until we enter the year of 2025. But if by this time next year, so a year from now, we haven't heard about it, I'll be thinking it's unlikely, but not impossible. But what do you guys think? Let me know in the comments below. This is Andre's Restart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care.